Transaction and Use Tax Citizens Oversight Committee, also known as the Measure U regular meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is now 4:01. Roll call.
Committee Member Christy Carlson.
Here.
Committee Member James Importante.
Here.
Vice Chair Beth Williams. Here. And Chair David Scrivener.
Here.
Please note absent Randy Diaz.
We will now hear public comments not pertaining to items on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. This process will be the same for comments pertaining to each agenda item. Are there any public comments? Seeing none. Nobody here? We have none. We will now consider items on the consent calendar which will be enacted in one motion unless a commissioner has a request to remove an item or for discussion. Does anybody want to do that?
Move to approve.
Second.
May I have a motion?
Oh, move to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the measure passes. Will staff please present the report?
Yes. I'm going to give it from here because I like facing you better rather than staring at the side and trying to see your faces. So I will be presenting from here today. So today we have a pretty packed schedule. We're going to be going through several fiscal years today. So bear with me and please stop me and ask me questions at any time. We are very happy to report that we were able to close out the city's fiscal year 24 audit. So with that citywide audit, it includes the general fund and of course our Measure U dollars. We were able to receive a clean, unmodified opinion from the auditors on the audit, which is the best opinion you could receive. So we're happy to be able to report that the $3.3 million in tax revenue and expenses that were previously presented to the committee, the figures were given at the September 2024 meeting, have not changed. The auditors confirmed those figures. So attachment A in your agenda are those same figures that you can review in detail. Today, I'm just letting you know they were officially confirmed by our auditors. Moving on to fiscal year 25. As you know, our fiscal year closes on June 30th of each year. So this past June 30th, 2025, we were able to close up our FY25 numbers as best we can to give you an estimate. We wanted to present the budget to actual estimates to you today. Note that the budget was reviewed for the fiscal year 25 by the committee in March of 2024, so those figures have not changed. The actual, however, it does show quite a bit of change, and we do have to estimate our June and final fiscal year sales tax revenue payment at this time because everything comes at a lag. So we won't be receiving those monies from the states until maybe a month or so from now, which means that I'm giving you figures as we've received now with the estimate through the end of the year, and the audited figures will come back to you just as we did now for FY24, and I'll let you know of any changes that have happened since these FY25 preliminary figures. Overall, we're projecting about a $500,000 decrease, you see, from the 3.6 to the 3.1 of the Measure U revenues. This we will accredit to a lot of decrease in the sales tax overall, including some of the cannabis reductions that you've likely heard quite a few times at our recent council meetings. That obviously affects sales tax too when our cannabis revenues come down. We are hoping that at our next meeting in October, we'll be able to invite HDL to come and present and give some forecast trends and analysis of sales tax overall to you at our next meeting. So I'm working on coordinating that now, and we can go into the trends a little further at that time. Regarding the expenditure side, you do see the 3.1 on the expense side as well. And so we'll go over any decreases that occurred here. It's looking like the streets and maintenance division, as far as all of the areas that Measure U covers, is the one that did decrease the most, and we'll go over that in detail now. You have in your staff report on attachment B a full list of all of the 25 numbers. I have them repeated here by the type of expenditure. And so I'll really just be going over any major changes or decreases with you today, the detail you already have. So I'll start by noting the PD various equipment line item. Looks like the first one that changed from 87,000 down to about 50,000. That came in under budget, but I did want to report to you all what we actually did end up buying throughout the year. What was purchased by the police department there are computers for the computer-aided dispatch system. So that's the line item right above that CAD system. That is for the software itself that they use for dispatch. The various equipment that was purchased was a computer. In order to use that new software, they did buy a new computer, as well as one for traffic control. A crime scene CSI camera was purchased, as well as a new evidence freezer with those funds. Moving on, you will see that although we came under budget in that line item, we did come above budget in the investigation / evidence and safety supplies. So we did use the funds there instead. Those seem like the major changes to this division, so I'll move on to the street and maintenance actuals. You will see that the Pleasant Valley Storm Drain Rehab Project did not come to fruition. Instead, it was replaced with the Pearson Road Storm Drain Project, which runs from Pearson to Bard. It was identified by the Public Works Department as more of a priority area in need of repair. And so that project just got off the ground in this fiscal year, is why you only see $3,000 spent to date, but it will be continued in fiscal year 26, where they do need to complete that project. The underground storage tank project began, but it did not get completed, which is why that came in under budget at $17K, and it again will appear on your 26 budget and have to get completed in that next fiscal year. Those ended up being multi-year projects. Improvements to the Miranda Park parking lot and median hardscape did not come to fruition. That did not get done because the Wainimi Beach walkway and swing set project was prioritized and started first. If you've experienced the swings at the beach, it's a very nice area. They actually made those swings ADA compliant. And so when we got in there, sometimes when you start a project, you don't realize other things need to get fixed until you start building it. And so the Public Works Department did find a lot of other areas in need of ADA modifications and compliance in order to get the project stamped and closed up and adhering to everything that the city needed to get done. So efforts were spent there instead. And so you'll see that that took up some of our citywide parking lot project funds, as well as that Miranda Park funds.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So a lot of these items were passed on this year. They'll show up next year. But how much got deferred altogether?
How much got deferred altogether? So for those projects, it's pretty much the same amount that wasn't done. So I think, and I'll show it in a future slide. I just didn't put them side by side.
It looks like at the bottom that we're 1.4 versus 1.0. So that would be the difference?
Let me take a look.
450,000.
So I know that the undergrad storage tank is budgeted for 152K in the new year, and the Pearson Road storm drain repair is increased up to 452K in the new year. So it's actually a little above that amount. The facilities property maintenance did come over budget. There were quite a few properties in need of repair ever since the storm that had occurred in the two prior years. The PD remodel and repipe due to storm repair was done. They had fixes to their roofs and their piping that had flooding due to the storm. The Public Works Industrial Building had exterior renovations and a fire line project that had to get done to bring it up to code. And so that's why you see an overage there. Moving on to Parks and Rec. The recreation vehicle is much higher because lifeguards ordered a new truck that became outfitted for use directly on the beach. And that took some of the funding from the open gym with the Boys and Girls Club line item that you will see was not spent. Due to its closure, the Boys and Girls Club had a remodel to do, so we were unable to use the gym. The junior lifeguard program expenses were increased because the beach portable restroom trailer rental was not utilized. Facilities was able to fix the restrooms so that they could use the restrooms at the beach and no longer need to rent the portable trailer. So instead, they did use those funds for uniforms, equipment and supplies, and trainings for the lifeguards.
And why did the expenses for the program go up? From budgeted
The-
7,000 up to actuals 23,000?
They spent that on uniforms, equipment, supplies, and training because they had come under budget on that next line item of their portable trailer rental.
Oh, okay,
So they kind of switched the
Okay.
funds around since they didn't need to use the trailer.
got it.
So those are my preliminary notes on fiscal year 25 expenditures. I'm going to move on to fiscal year 26 and 27, so our current year and budget that was just recently adopted. You will see that when we came to you last, we proposed a Measure U revenue budget of 2.8 million in year one and 2.9 million in year two. These numbers came directly from HGL's sales tax analysis and estimate, which they continued to warn us of economic uncertainty that was arising. However, when we paused and looked at the city as a whole and we were balancing our budget, we realized that we also didn't want to be overly conservative. As you heard, we went through a lot of general fund reductions and cuts. And so we feared that if we became too conservative and cut too many things, it'd be programs we wouldn't be able to bring back. So management decided that we would go with a closer to the current 25 fiscal year figure for Measure U, which if you recall from the 25 amounts that I showed you, it was 3.1 million. So we did reduce from that to follow HDL's trend, but not as much as they had predicted in an effort to just not be over conservative. Because we changed that figure since we last met with you all and we were in the middle of building the budget, we did have to increase the expense side for where we will be spending these Measure U dollars in order to create a balanced budget and show that to you with zero variance now. So I'll be going over with you a comparison from what we proposed to you all at our last meeting versus what was actually adopted due to those changes. Okay. Starting with public safety. You'll see all of the salaries were kept the same. The first major change is with the computer-aided dispatch system. This is that ongoing technology improvement for the dispatch center. That quote actually came in under what we had originally thought it would. Our IT team is trying to be very creative with how we store that data, whether it's using the cloud, using internal servers, and a lot of technological words I don't personally understand very thoroughly. They are trying to seek reductions, being more efficient, finding cuts to budget to that. So they think they can get it a little lower, which is why we're able to bring that cost down. Next, the addition of a third dispatch console. When we sat down with PD and reviewed their budget, they decided that this was not a priority, but that instead, if they could, they wanted to increase their police body cameras and tasers. Because of new technology that's coming out, they were able to get tasers that don't require as much of a charge, so it's much safer for their officers because they last longer. This is the way they explained it to me. The evidence freezer replacement was postponed. So instead of the 20K for a whole new freezer, because if you recall, when we went over 25, we just purchased a new evidence freezer. They felt we could postpone the purchase of another one and instead focus this funding on the upkeep of those freezers, which I learned they have to have Wi-Fi for, as well as an alarm system to make sure that they stay up to code with regulations on evidence.
So basically, you just refurbished what we had.
They had just bought a new one in fiscal year 25 budget. Their ongoing one is still okay. They think that they can make it through another year without purchasing a new one because of that newly purchased one just in the prior year.
Okay.
The police uniforms budget, we had already discussed adding it to FY27. And so because we did need to add more expenses back in to tie to that increase in revenue we're hoping for and predicting, we added that budget back into year one so that we're funding it in 2 years. The police firearms and range equipment, when we asked for budget cuts, this was a line item that the department felt they could reduce down to bare essentials. And so that one did go down. And those are the changes for public safety. Moving on to street and maintenance. The neighborhood speed cushion project was something we had initially thought about funding with Measure U. But once we spoke to the department, we realized that these are actually built upon requests by the community. And we don't have any current requests right now. We had recently just undergone a couple neighborhood installations and have not received requests since. So since these are only done as requested, we decided to prioritize Measure U funding for something we are definitely going to get done in the year, or at least have a higher likelihood of getting done during the year. So that has been repurposed instead towards storm drain, maintenance, and clearing in year one, which was something the committee had already approved budgeting in year 2. Moving on to that Pearson Road storm drain repair, that was when we had just talked about being an ongoing project from fiscal year 25. We now show it here in fiscal year 26 with an increased price adjustment. So this was part of what you asked, what are we carrying over? It's this project plus a little more when we met with Public Works and found out a new revised cost estimate for this project. The Miranda Park closed loop walkway project was budgeted with Measure U in year 2. However, it was council's decision to not budget for any general fund dollars towards CIP in year 2 because we are going to have a citywide effort by staff to look out for grants. We've already gotten a pretty good idea that we hope we'll get a state parks grant for Miranda Park in year 2. So that is why we decided not to use Measure U funds on this, and instead hope for the grant funding to come in. There's a lot more parks funding available for that.
Can I ask what they're going to do at Miranda Park?
This was called Closed Loop Walkway Project. So I was told it was to fix walkways there, but I don't know any further information from that, especially if we're going to get grant funding. There's definitely a lot of rules and stipulations for how to use that. So I don't know what the grantor is going to want in that area. Instead, we're going to be repurposing some of these fundings towards that underground storage tank remove and replacement project, which again is an environmental state requirement for us that we have to get done in fiscal year 26. This is another second project that was one of those multi-year projects ongoing from fiscal year 25 that the team has already started bringing to fruition.
Can I ask what is being stored underground?
Okay, this tank, I believe, is where they filter out oil and water from the fleet.
Okay.
So there's a state requirement for how they dump that and clean that and separate it, which some tank infiltration does for us underground at the yard. What other changes? Okay, so now these last few items, again, because we had to add some expenses back because we're upping our revenue estimates here, we heard priorities from you all at our last meeting. We try our best to consider these and bring these to fruition of all of the priority items you mentioned. So that when we're in the middle of budget and we have to make a last minute change after having met with you, we hope that we picked good items to budget for in year 2 that meet those priorities. But please let us know if we're right and wrong for future reference. We just chose items that the committee had previously funded before. So you'll see added in year 2 at the bottom here are street landscapes and facilities uniforms, facility property maintenance, facility graffiti removal, and streets, landscape, and facilities maintenance vehicle costs. Moving on, lastly, to Parks and Recreation. Again, you'll see an increase in the lifeguard vehicles. That's going to be an ongoing cost that the city will pay to cover that new truck lease that we talked about for a new vehicle that can be outfitted to be for use on the beach. Staffing did not change. The second swing set at Wainimi Beach was postponed. Again, we're trying to minimize general funded CIP projects right now. That is a part of our grant search. Since we just put in the first swing set at the beach, this one was not deemed a priority after all. And none of the items have changes. Any questions? I know we went through quite a few years all at once today, but I'm thankful for your time that we were able to check off and review quite a lot of staff expenses and work done in these past few years. So open to questions or any committee feedback.
Sure, I have a few questions and
Sure.
comments. So starting on the 23-24 audited actuals, I see some of the headers on the line, the top 2 line items say projected revenues and projected expenditures. Just wanted to confirm, or perhaps that should be changed to actual. So that when I was first reading it, I thought it was just the budgeted numbers. And so if it is the actuals, then I think it should read that so it's clear.
Correct. Those are the actuals, and that can be adjusted.
And then on the following page for the 24-25, the underground storage tank is an environmental state requirement. And so, probably don't have the answer today, but typically those types of violations are, or one, I don't know if it has already resulted in a violation to the city. Sounds like it hasn't, and so I think it would be helpful maybe when we're making, or you're making the case, what are potentially the fines that would be related to that if this storage tank was not to be replaced? Because I know, just from prior roles, I had a sewer maintenance district that was basically, discharging sewage, and it was $148,000 a year, right?
I can definitely find
And-
out
and
the
so-
fine for you.
So something like that would help,
Sure.
I guess, justify or describe, some of those, the potential risk to the city and how these funds would be helping avert those potential additional costs if that replacement wasn't made.
So we have not received a fine to date. I do know that this was a proactive project that did have a deadline to get done. But as far I know, we have not received anything yet. I can find out what that would have been.
Right. And then for the 25-26 and the following year's budgets, I think the approach to increase the Measure U revenue in the budget, I think that's appropriate. I think at best, it's somewhat flat from the prior fiscal year, so I think that's an approach I would have taken if I were the budget analyst in this area. And I think, it's 10% less than what HDL had, or 10% more than what HDL had projected, but I would consider that within a margin of error, so I think that's an appropriate increase from what was earlier proposed. And then, again, with the storage tank, so it went from $500,000 in the prior year, and then I see $152,000, and so is that reflective of a revised cost estimate, or is that a partial, or how do you explain the variance in the cost?
I believe that's a revised cost estimate. I want to say we were able to use some staff time to get it done instead of all using consultants and third party. I will double check on that figure for you though to confirm that it was to be done in FY26 and not split out. That's the only alternative I can think of, is that it's split between FY26 and FY27, but I can confirm with the department.
Right. Okay, and that's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? comments? I'm just wondering with, none of us know what's going to go on with the economy, but looks like we're probably headed towards more inflation, which does two things. It raises our costs, but it also might bring in more revenue. That makes sense. So does HDL consider all that?
They definitely do. However, as you know, our news is changing every day with what changes are going on in the economy, which is why this has been the most difficult budget we've done in the past few years. So that's why we're really looking forward to having HDL come in. That means it'll be maybe 5 months since we produced the budget. So that should be a good length of time to get some revised estimates from them and see what they're seeing trending, see what they're seeing coming down the pipeline. So we're hoping for some good news, or at least clearer news, when they come speak with us in October.
Any other questions or comments or thoughts? We have no public comments.
No comments.
May I have a motion to accept the report?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All against? Hearing none, it passes.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much. Moving on to the next business item. The Measure U Annual Report to City Council. Today, we'd like to ask the committee to determine how and when you'd like to present your annual report to City Council. So just a little background, mostly for myself, since I was not here at the time. On April 15th of 2024 was the last time the committee produced and presented their report to the council as outlined in the committee's scope and duties. As we have presented to you today, the FY24 audited figures, as well as a preliminary estimate for the FY25 figures, staff feels that this could be a good time for a report to the council on those items. Should the committee be okay with passing on this information, feel ready to give a report, there are several options for your consideration as far as how that report should be given out. And these are just recommendations from staff, options. Should you have something else you all would like to do, please let us know. The committee could produce their own report just as done in the past, and a member was designated to present that physically at the city council meeting. Or the committee could feel that the process could be more routine. The report could be given as a consent item to council using the data provided in the attachments of this last agenda item that we just reviewed. And the meeting could be attended instead by city staff should council not want to attend. Another option would be that if the committee does want to provide verbiage, a cover letter, some kind of personal letter to the council where you can give opinion and feedback, you can do so added to the data that was aforementioned and the attachments that we've provided you today. Again, just to try to get an idea of how much workload you all want to do, how much you want staff participation. We're definitely open to your feedback and ideas as to how the report should be done moving forward.
Any thoughts? Well, let's start out. Here's some history. We've given one report to the council because of all the problems we had in the past of not being able to hold meetings and such. And that was pretty comprehensive. It covered everything that took place over the last several years. And so we kind of wiped the slate clean, I guess I would like to say, with that. So moving forward, really, I have no criticisms at all about how this whole process has been handled. So we can either all get up and talk to the council and give our report. We can basically have what we did last time was to have the staff come up with the numbers, and then the rest of us worked on some figures, some history and stuff. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, the context. You know, I'm comfortable with our recommendations being in part of a consent item. You know, I think if there was something egregious or something controversial that we didn't agree on, I think maybe it would warrant one of us to go up to the council and present something more formal. But seeing that there really isn't anything that I would consider concerning, I think option 2 would be acceptable. You know, typically I would probably see a section in the report referencing this meeting, the conversation, some of the questions that were provided, and then some responses to that. So I think that would be, you know, some of my thoughts and input on that.
Any other member input?
I'm good with a consent item.
I think I agree that we have consensus then.
Okay, so we're thinking option 2 of the list provided, which would be using essentially the reports we provided to you and reported on just now, and moving forward with that as a consent item.
Do you need a motion?
I'm trying to figure out where item 2 is in here, so.
Oh, I think it's at the
So
page 2 of the
Last page.
staff's memo.
I'm still not finding it, but I
It's
think
in the
that-
your packet.
yeah.
I can tell you the page number of the packet.
Ah, here we go, thank you. Yeah, I think I agree with 2. So may I have a motion?
Sure, I move to approve option 2, providing the Measure U report as a consent item to the city council. The data provided in the FY 24-25 fiscal year. And the summary of this meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, that passes.
Thank you.
I'd just like to kind of close by saying we're in a very different spot than we were in the past. It feels like we're just getting the information we need. It's transparent. The funds are being allocated with the intent of the measure in the first place, so we're not getting money put other places or hidden or anything. So our big problem, of course, is that we're in financial difficulty here and going to have to make some cuts, but that's the nature of the beast we're in. So.
I thank you so much, and we always value your feedback. If you feel we kind of gave you that meeting schedule of month by month, what we'd like to do with the committee, what we'd like to present to you, but if there's something you feel is missing or could be done in a different way, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or comments before we close?
I just wanted to point out that the meeting time for next meeting in October, we do prefer the 4 typically, but 5 p.m. will be for October simply because the port will be using this room up until about 4:30. And that's the only reason for the need to move that one meeting.
Is that already on the calendar, or do we need to get that updated?
That is on the calendar.
It is, okay.
Okay, let me make sure. It's April, No, so October, right?
October.
Yes,
What day?
October 22nd at 5 p.m.
Yeah, okay, I'm good. It's in my calendar.
Awesome.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting at, looks like it's, call it 4:40.
Thank you.